Hey guys, it's Woody. This video is going to talk about the differences between how Microsoft and Sony are treating indie developers, what we can expect from them in the next generation, and how they're doing it now in the current gen on consoles. So sit back, get comfortable, enjoy some unprecedented zombie turkey outbreak destruction. Here we go. A quick note about indie games. I wanted to show them a touch of support. They're fun. I play a lot of AAA titles on my channel, and I like AAA titles too. I like Gears of War, I like Battlefield 4, I like Call of Duty. I like these things because they're like playing a movie, right? It's like legit. It's so huge, it's big, and it's impressive, and they look fantastic, and they don't have any little glitches, and it's really cool. Well, they can have glitches, but just work with me here. Indie games tend to have a lot of personality. You know, Zombie Turkey Outbreak right here has personality in its own way. The Cave, Death Spank, games my wife and I play together. Those things are a ton of fun. And yeah, they're just kind of humorous in a way that you don't see in the AAA titles. So that's my thought on indie games. Now I'm going to talk about them as it relates to the different consoles. So Microsoft takes the games and they break them into three categories. Microsoft calls them arcade, on-demand, and indie. On-demand means retail. Like in my head, that's what that means. You can download like the big AAA titles that you'd be getting at Walmart or Target, or I don't know if Europeans have something different, but you know, whatever giant superstores you're getting your game from, GameStop, that's the stuff that you get on demand. Arcade is another classification, and it's somewhere in between indie and on-demand. You need a publisher to help you do that, and I'll explain the role of a publisher in a minute. It's a big budget thing. I think people spend like $100,000 to get featured by Arcade. Microsoft will review the games. They get about a dozen games a week, and they sit there and carefully handpick which ones can be featured through Arcade. It's an expensive process, but it's worthwhile. Like from a business standpoint, the average Arcade game makes a 156% profit. So that's their deal. It's a good thing. And it's a selective process, and arcade is just sort of one step below AAA title. Indie is cheap. You can get games on the Xbox 360 without paying a fortune, and there are a lot of games like this one right here. Somebody bought a game engine, put together a bunch of cute art things, and built a shooter out of zombie turkeys, and I bet they made a lot of money because it's kind of a fun game. That sort of entrepreneurial, fun, make it yourself kind of thing can exist if it costs $100,000 to get your game featured on an Xbox. That's the deal. Going to the Xbox One, what Microsoft is doing is they're removing all the boundaries, the categories. That's how they describe it anyway, but I think that's a little too kind to themselves. What they're really doing is they're getting rid of indie. So it's still going to have arcade. You're still going to have that level, I'll call right below the AAA titles, right below on demand. But you're not going to have a cheap way to get on there. You know, for example, they require a publisher, right? You need to have one. And before I get to the PlayStation, let me explain what a publisher does. They fill a role that makes some sense. Typically what happens is you put together your resume or whatever, you go to your publisher and you say, these are the games I made before, this is the one I want to make in the future, and they'll fund it partly. And then you build your vertical slice or your game trailer. Maybe you put together one chapter, and if they like it, they fund it the rest of the way, and you build an entire game. Sometimes they also provide some quality control, someone who looks at it. They may have a little input on your creative direction, which game developers hate, but publishers like it, and they're the investors, so they get to put their 2 cents in on what the game should look like. They are putting up the money. They also help game developers, press all the CDs, get the things into Target and Walmart and such, which maybe you as a software developer, you don't know how to do that. So you need some help from a publisher. That's what a publisher does. He teams up with the guy who has the talent to make a game and rounds out that game and helps handle all the other commercial stuff that's outside of his skill set. And like I said, they invest and they fund in the thing. If you want to do this all on your own, or maybe you haven't, built a personal resume yet, which would attract a publisher to you, then you build an indie game. So like I said earlier, while Microsoft claims that they are just removing the distinctions between them, what they're really doing is combining on-demand or retail, if that helps you understand it, and arcade, which is like what I want to call like the AAA version of an indie game, you know, the high budget version of an indie game. They're going to take those two categories, combine them, and then take the indie category and just get rid of it. You can't even go on an Xbox One without having a publisher alongside you. On the PS4, which I think a lot of you will be curious about, the distinctions also don't exist there, but the limitations don't exist there either. They are very indie game friendly. So if you're building an indie game, and what you might see in the next gen, unless Microsoft changes course, is indie games are going to exist on the PC, they're going to exist on the Xbox 4, but they're not going to exist on the Xbox One. People call Minecraft an indie game, and I guess it kind of is, but it's so much budget over there on the Minecraft side that you know, they can do things that people who make games like the one you're watching, Zombie Turkey Outbreak, can't. Minecraft can be on the Xbox One. It's not a problem. And it should be better on the Xbox One than you've ever seen before, closer to what you're used to seeing on the PC, because the specs on the hardware are closer to what you'd see in a PC. But that's Minecraft, and that's, you know, it's an arcade game anyway. They're not getting rid of the arcade games. They're getting rid of the truly indie stuff, the stuff like you're watching right here. The PlayStation, on the other hand, they're going to keep supporting it. So they're down with the low budget game. That's the deal. I predict Microsoft's going to change course on this. I really think they will. I think they're going to change course on a lot of the stuff that has gotten them in hot water in the next couple of weeks. I think they're going to change course on, you know, DRM stuff. I think they're going to change course on indie games, and you know, there are some like software side things that aren't hard to fix. They've just made some missteps in there, and we'll see if I'm right or not. A lot of people are going to call me a fanboy for thinking they could possibly do anything right. But this just seems like a no-brainer to me, and I expect them to be able to make no-brainer decisions. We'll see if I'm right or wrong. Lastly, I'm going to ask you, let me know what you think. You know, have you been playing indie games? Are you like me, where maybe 5 years ago you didn't like indie games and now you've rediscovered them and that they're a good time? I'm curious. Am I the only one that is bothered by the lack of indie games for the Xbox One?